Hey everyone, welcome back to day 10 of 100 days of VBA. Today we're going to carry on looking at some of the text functions that we started looking at yesterday. So we're going to do a few more, some quite simple and some more complicated. So let's get going. The first three we're going to look at are going to be quite familiar to you because they're very similar or the same as functions you can use in Excel just normally. So the first one is left. So left, open brackets, our input value, and then a number of letters, let's say 4. And that's simply going to return the 4 letters on the left of our input value. So in this case, that's here. Now, like Excel, you can also use right. So in this case, we're going to return the, let's say, 7 rightmost letters of our input value, and that's content. So again, similar to Excel, but left and right, you put in your input value or the text. So we could define something completely custom here. Here is a test value, and then the number of characters you want to return on either the left or the right of that value. So there you go, that's left and right. Now I mentioned there'd be 3 you'd recognize. The last one is going to be mid. So again, similarly to Excel, we're going to start with our input value. For mid, we're going to use the start position. So let's say we want to aim for something in the middle of our string. So let's say 10. And then the number of characters that we want. So let's say 4. You can see that's given us the end of sum and the space afterwards. But if we were aiming for sum, then we'd know that we just need to replace the 10 with 9. And there we have it. We've pulled out sum from our text. So left, right, and mid. All very similar to how they work in Excel. The next function I'm going to show you is the InStr function. So this works the same way that a search for a find would in Excel. So we're first going to give it our input value, and then we're going to search for something in our input value, let's say test. And what InStr is going to do is return number 14, which is the character number where it finds test. So if you were to count those letters, you'd find that test, the T at the start of that, was the 14th character. And if we went back to sum, then you see 9. If you remember, 9 was where we did our mid to pull out sum, so that we can see both functions are returning the same there. So InStr, very useful for finding the position of a certain word or phrase or letter in some other text. Now, next we're going to look at replace. So replace, we're going to put our input value. We're going to put in something that we want to replace. Maybe let's say text, and we want to replace that with the word string instead. So there you go. We've changed here is some text content to here is some test string content. If we wanted to remove text totally, we could just leave that last option blank. And it just says, here is some test content. Now, because there's a space either side of text, we've got a double space there. So we could just add a space there, and there we go. Now, the other things that replace can do is a couple of other extra options. So you can also give it a start number. So let's say we start at number 5, and we replace text with nothing again. So you can see here, it's done the same thing. It's replaced text with nothing, and we've got is some test content, but also we've missed off here because we've started at the 5th character, so we've ignored the first 4. So we can see we've got space, because obviously here is 4, and the 5th is space, and then is some test content with text replaced by nothing. So I'm going to make that number 1, so we're starting at the beginning again, and use our last option, which is count. So in this case, I just want to replace spaces. So if we don't do anything else and leave all the defaults, replace space with nothing, then we just get one long word with all of our spaces gone. Now I'm going to start at the beginning with our start option. I'm also going to put 1 for our count option. And that means just replace the first one, just only count 1. So if we increase that to 2, then we're replacing the first 2 spaces. If I place that to 3, the first 3 spaces, and so on and so on. So you've got total control whether you want to replace everything whether you only want to have the second half or the second section based on the start number, and how many you actually want to replace altogether. So lots of different options for replace. Now, the last one I'm going to look at today is split. So again, I'm going to come split, use our input value, and next it's asking for a delimiter. So what a delimiter is basically the separator, is the technical term for the separator. So in this case, we've got lots of spaces in our text, so it makes sense to use space. And there we go. So you can see what it's done is actually just written here. And that's because it split this input into a row effectively, but we've only asked it to write up to B3. So if we were to ask it to write up to G3, for example, and rerun, then you can see we've split all of our text across those columns. But remember, like we said, we either need to specify or use our dynamic tricks to make sure we're finding the last column that we actually want to write data into. And you can do this with all sorts of different delimiters. So let's replace all the spaces with hyphens. There we go. And all we need to do in our split function is replace space with hyphen again, and we get the same result. So let's clear that, redo it. There we go, simple as. So there's a few more text functions that you can use in VBA.